Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BAInsights session. Today, we're talking about how to set up a BA community of practice, or COP, as you might have heard of it. We've got two really good guests to talk to us about that very topic. So I look forward to this session. And for anyone that's watching, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you want to drop a like on the video, that always helps circulate it. And of course, if you've got any views or comments of your own, really be interested to hear what you've got to say. But beyond that, let's do some introductions beyond that, and we'll start with you, Alison, first, please, with me.
Okay, so hi, my name's Ali Jurowski. I am the head of role for business analysis within DWP Digital, and we've got a community of around 285 or so permanent BAs plus contractors, so quite large. That's me.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And Samir.
Hello, John. Hi, Alison. I'm Samir Dave. I'm the manager of the Business Analysis Center of Excellence at AmeriHealth Caritas. We have a community of about 77 to 80 business analysts, business systems analysts, contractors, full-time employees. Really strong, excellent community that really truly believes in the center of excellence in the community of practice. And is really dedicated to kind of spreading the word of business analysis and kind of raising awareness of that with different business stakeholders. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. But it's a wonderful opportunity to be part of a strong community.
Excellent, thank you, Samir. And the main thing I get from both your introductions is you're perfectly placed to talk about BA community practices. It feels like probably about get 1,000 people between you, possibly looking after in some degree. So definitely well qualified. Good. So maybe we should start with a question, Alison, in terms of how individuals benefit from being involved in or part of a BA community of practice.
Yeah, I think for me, the kind of big thing that people tend to say that they get from being part of the community is that kind of sense of belonging somewhere. So if you come into a very large organization like ours and you're working on a particular piece of work, you might be working with lots of different other roles. You might be kind of feeling a little bit like, okay, I know that I'm a BA, I'm working on this particular team, but it's that sense of then being able to meet lots of other people, share information, share ideas with them, and actually feel like you belong to something other than just kind of being a role on a team. So I think people get a lot of value from that.
Yeah, and that's definitely something really important. And there's going to be all levels of individual in your team, I imagine, and actually being part of that team is a brilliant opportunity for many to learn from each other, I think.
Definitely, yeah. That's what we try to encourage, a lot of kind of learning from each other, sharing ideas, and who knows what, and who might have a good idea about something or who's tried something. So yeah.
And Samir?
I would say the main thing is it reinforces the business analysis profession. It is a profession, it is a discipline, and as a discipline, it has best practices that are on the same level as any other discipline, whether it be product owner or project manager. And it gives that confidence to the members of the community to say, you know what, we are aligned, we have best practices, we are a profession, we're business analysis professionals. And I think that goes a long way towards reinforcing not only awareness within the community, but also awareness outside of the community, which is key, right? Otherwise people come in and say, oh, it's a community of note takers, just take the requirements down. It's much more than that. And I think that's what we broadcast as a disciplined set of professionals in business analysis.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Samir. It's certainly one that resonates with me, because I think being part of a BA community of practice means that, as a lone BA, sometimes we work with stakeholders that don't always appreciate business analysis and what we're doing. So having that wider community means you've probably got access to content, materials, perspectives, thought leadership even, that might help persuade some of these people, or at least help them understand.
Right.
And you've also got access to others in the community as well, which means you can probably bring them along to share some of that insight, to hopefully raise the awareness of the good work that BAs do.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely, John. And that's really something that I do day in and day out. And I stress to the community, raise awareness, be confident in your discipline and what you bring to the table, but you have to raise awareness.
So we do at Capco by having a BA community of practice as well. I think there's a level of reassurance for BAs that actually there's plenty of BAs doing some really good things, using the right approaches, the right techniques, and actually by coming together and sharing what they're doing, hearing what others are doing, it can be really sort of just recognise that they're not alone and they're actually doing the right thing. So I think that has value as well.
Absolutely.
I wonder, Samir, I mean, how does your organisation benefit itself from the community of practice? Because obviously we've talked about how the BA benefits, but how does the organisation benefit?
I liken the community of practice as the oil in the machine, so to speak. We have projects, we have agile projects, we have waterfall full projects as well, and multiple approaches with multiple team members and business stakeholders involved. Timelines and time boxes are always short, resources are always scarce, and it's a constant, right? And I realize, or I've seen many times that first time that the timeline is shortened or truncated, business analysis and that component goes out the window. That kind of gets shortened even more so. Um, the community of practice and the center of excellence is there to provide weight to what the work is that's being done, so that I've had BSAs come to me or BAs come to me and say, because of the community of practice, because of the center of excellence, I was able to go back and say, these are best practices. These are, I want to raise a risk if we don't allow enough time for, say, elicitation of requirements. It allows me to also step in and work with the community to cope with the rigors and the stress of business analysis within a project. And I think that's really important, because the flip side to me, the other side of the coin for best practices are teaching and training on coping mechanisms, coping with difficult stakeholders, for instance, who are not cooperative or non-cooperative, working through that. It gives the community confidence. It gives the community the confidence to go forth, and they're supported. So if there's any kind of problem, they contact me. I will be happy to talk to all the stakeholders or work out a strategy with the analysts, business analysis professional themselves, to work through the situation. So it really serves as a kind of, a tie between all the members of the community, giving confidence, giving legitimacy, but also knowing that you're part of something bigger, as we've said, and that there are people that can come to help to strategize, and there's a way out of things, out of any challenge that we're facing. And these are constant challenges, right, that are project to project. So
yeah, certainly resonate with me, Samir, what you said there.
Mm-hmm.
Ali, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I guess the organisation, for me, it's almost like we're providing almost like a free bank of knowledge of all of these minds kind of to come together. So if someone joins and they want to find out a particular piece of information about how something might work, or particular what's worked well in a particular project, or who should I contact for this, there's always kind of that input from that wider community group. So people are really keen to help. And I think that's something that you can't kind of bottle up and just put somewhere. It's like this constant kind of updated knowledge base where people have that ability to go and ask stuff. And I think without it, there would be quite a lot of gaps. So if we didn't have this community, I think people wouldn't necessarily have anything else in its place where they could go and kind of ask all of these questions and get the right answers, especially in terms of kind of the BA role and kind of how it operates within some of these complex projects. So I think in that respect, it's really invaluable.
Yeah, it's interesting, because it made me think, as you were talking, Alison, about what would happen when we didn't have a BA community, and actually probably opposite of what you're both saying, really, that we as BAs would probably be developing our own approaches, customizing them for every situation. Hopefully, some of us as BAs might reuse our own approaches at the very least, but we won't be benefiting from the approaches that others have taken, and that be grounded in that experience of others. You also wouldn't have that cohesion in terms of the general way that business analysis is conducted in the organisation is similar and familiar and consistent as well, which I think is always important when you've got different stakeholders using that service. And of course, you wouldn't necessarily know who your peers are and your colleagues are that you can engage as well. So amongst a whole bunch of other things, the community of practice does that for the organisation, as you've all said. I think as well, on a broader level within the organisation, it can bring a group of people together and actually stimulate some social connections and some networking, and just that morale that comes with actually being, I think to Alison's point, part of that team, part of something, but also knowing that you've got colleagues that have got your back and they're there to help you and help you grow as well. So I think there's a myriad of benefits. I'm sure there are others, but I think between you and a little bit from me, you might have touched on a few of them, the most important ones anyway.
Definitely.
Those are great points. Yeah, those are great points. Absolutely. I think that otherwise the danger is everyone becomes siloed. And I've been in places where there's been no community of practice, and I've come in to kind of set one up. And it's amazing that everybody then has their own technique, their own version of how to approach, business analysis. They don't talk to each other, they're siloed. And because of that, the quality of the work varies greatly from project to project, depending on which analyst you get. And we're trying to make sure that the quality of work stays high, right? There's a high quality, everybody's talking to each other, there's a peer network of peers, and knowledge transfer.
It makes me think, Samir, I mean, whenever, as a consultant, I end up going to different organizations from time to time and certainly starting new projects quite often. And one of the things that I tend to do is try and understand how an organization, how they work from a BA standpoint, what their deliverables might look like, their tools, their templates, rather than do it all again. And actually, that having that community of practice means internally that there's already that environment. So if people external, whether it's new joiners or whether it's consultants, can come in, you can also benefit from that cohesion and those similar standards as well. I wonder, I mean, taking us back to sort of, I guess, the creation of a community of practice. Alison, how would you define, or how have you defined the scope and the membership, or even the purpose of your COP to make it focused and valuable for both organisation and the individual?
Yeah, so I guess we're focused on a few different aspects with it. So in terms of the membership, the members of our community are anybody who's working within a BA role within digital, whether that be a permanent person, someone doing it on a temporary basis, or someone who's coming as a contractor. So we've got a range of people. Anybody who's in the BA role is welcome to be part of that community. So in terms of membership, a bit more straightforward than maybe some others. But I guess the scope and the purpose, really trying to think about bringing that sense of community together was one of the purposes. So bringing people together, giving them opportunities and different ways to engage. So we're aware that not everybody's going to want to engage in the same way. And also with such big numbers, it's not going to be practical to say, okay, every month we're going to have an in-person community event where everyone's together. So we've had to think kind of a little bit more practically around different options for different people, so bringing that sense of community, but also then thinking about almost how we can engage people in other ways. So thinking about bringing in some things like face-to-face learning that we can do with people in specific hubs around particular topics. So yeah, we've got kind of a range of ways to engage and channels. So we have very active Teams channels where we encourage people to ask questions. So we've got a specific Q&A question where anybody can ask anything and people don't judge on the question, so people will be really helpful and ask and answer questions for people. But then we'll also try and do some face-to-face things. We'll also try and do some sort of remote share and learn. So just trying to keep it, I suppose, the options open for different people to engage in the way that they want. We're never going to get everybody, I say it's open to all these people. They're not all going to be engaging at any one point, and not everybody will ever want to engage with their community, and that's okay. I guess you've got to encourage people to be part of it, see the benefits, but it's not mandatory, and I don't think it should be. I think people should hopefully see that they will get a benefit from it and want to join. So yeah,
it's probably difficult to measure as well, those people that sort of sit next to people that are active members in the community and are learning through them, or maybe having a catch up with them the next day to find out what they've heard, even though they weren't necessarily on the call or in the session because they didn't want to or weren't able to. So it's always difficult to measure the exact number of beneficiaries, but there's probably more than we think anyway.
I hope so.
Samir.
I think just to touch on what Alison was saying, she makes a great point about mandatory versus and members of the community, some who are very active and some who are just not active no matter what, right? I mean, you have a different diverse audience and members of the community. Certainly for my community, there are different people. And I always get asked the question, who is the Center of Excellence for, or the community of practice for? And my answer is always the same. I said, for anyone who's conducting any form of business analysis on projects throughout the organization, because many times there are people conducting analysis in that role, but they don't have the title of BA or BSA or any of the various different, titles in our profession. So it's for everyone who's involved, and it's up to them to get involved, certainly. So we have different things that we offer, like the Teams channel. I'm glad you mentioned that, Alison. That's a wonderful tool to not only post, updates and announcements of webinars and, post different documents and cheat sheets and one sheets and best practices and the like, and allow for questions and that sort. We have monthly meetings as well, and a monthly meeting where the entire community comes together. Ours is not entirely as large as yours, so it's easier to get everybody together, but they all join together. And what we've done is, I think what I realized that we can't make everything mandatory, but for that once a month, 1 hour meeting, we make it mandatory for all of the business analysis professionals to come in and join. Business stakeholders are welcome to, and we'll have outside guest speakers either from the IIBA or elsewhere to join us and talk about the current issues and topics. One of the hottest topics, of course, AI and the impact on business analysis. So we try to stay ahead of the curve. But I think that it is all encompassing. It's important to be engaging with the community. There are times the community will go silent, and I'll be like just blowing the trumpet, kind of like broadcasting, hey, we're here, we're here, we're here. I have open office hours 3 times a week, so people join in, discuss any issues they may have. But it forms that commonality, that thread of a community, and I think that's critical to broadcast on multiple communication channels as well to get people involved and encourage people to get involved. But to your point, there will be some people that will be quiet. But then all of a sudden, one person came up to me, never said a thing for almost the whole year, and came up to me one time and reached out to me on Teams and said, you know what? It's been so helpful for me. So you can't judge a book by the cover, right? So to speak. There may be people that are not actively involved but are still benefiting, and I think that's the criticality of a community of practice, is that the benefit of it's there, and that benefit is active and or even passive, but it's there to bring that community together. So I just wanted to kind of build on what, because I think Alison made a great point on that, and I just wanted to kind of build on that and how our lens is over here through that.
Yeah, and it makes me think on top. I mean, we completed the set as well. I mean, we use Teams in our organisation to connect with the BAs and allow them to ask questions and to raise concerns or just share what they're doing as well if they wish to, as well as meet the team so they know who's in the core team so they can go and ask questions if they want to. We'll share some artifacts if anyone across the organisation has done, which they generally do quite often, when they've done some good work from a BA standpoint. They've created a bit of content or used the technique in a particularly positive way, which we'll share that. So it just reinforms, I guess, those people that might otherwise forget that there is a BA community. And
right,
of course,
John. Yeah,
there's always new people joining, particularly, I guess, in organisations of your size. It's definitely the case for Capco. There's new joiners all the time. So you've got to continually be talking to them, as well as the people who perhaps missed the message last time.
Right. It's always that join the community. I try to be involved and try to identify, locate any new analysts that join, and I just reach out to them and I set up meetings and I say, come join the community, of business analysis professionals, right? I'm kind of like broadcasting how important it is for them to be that they're a part of this, that we have organizational buy-in, which is really critical from senior leadership, because that's more challenging when you don't have that. And I've been in organizations where we don't have that, but thankfully in the current one, we do have that, and that makes a big difference as well when you have that. But you bring people on board, you onboard new hires, and you maintain that relationship throughout their career or their path in the organization.
Yeah, we do similar with anybody new. So kind of look at who's joining in the next month or so, make sure that on their first day they've got an email inviting them to join the community events, and kind of here's our SharePoint site, here's the information you can find on it, join the Teams channel. So they're automatically kind of enrolled and engaged in it from the outset.
Right.
You can catch people early, get them in.
Yeah.
It becomes a way of working, doesn't it?
Right. Get them early, because then you hold on to them all the way through, right? So
it's quite a simple approach, but one that's probably really valuable for the new joiners, because most new joiners don't know many people in the organisation, if any, that they're joining. So having that ability straight away to connect with like-minded individuals is always useful, I think.
Yeah,
makes me think as well. I mean, when it comes to membership, I mean, our community is open to anybody, quite honestly. So project managers, I think, will benefit a lot, and they do, from attending sessions that are hosted for BAs primarily. But of course, BAs work with product owners, they work with project managers, they work with developers. So all of those groups and more should feel, and they do hopefully feel, open to join. And sometimes we get those groups join, and they're in a position, like through our monthly sessions, maybe to share some challenges or practice or experience that they've seen, which either reinforces the good work the BAs are doing or makes us think maybe there's something we can do to help out a little bit more as well. So, so that's been useful. I know of another organisation we work closely with as well that have, periodic sessions between with PMs and BAs as well as part of the community. So there is that cohesion between those groups as well, which is always nice to hear. I wonder.
And I think that's critical.
Sorry, Samir.
I'm sorry, John. Yeah. No. I just want to say that's critical, that relationship, right? And what you're saying about having people join in, not just business analysis professionals per se, but having others join in our monthly meetings and everything. I always invite everyone, business stakeholders, PMs, especially PMs, because there's such a close working relationship with PMs. But I think it's important to bring them all together, and that's raising that awareness, right? That's really important to do. But I just wanted to kind of mention that that's really important, and I fully believe in that.
Yeah, so it never hurts to reiterate that as many times as possible. I think it's never a bad thing. You mentioned as well, peer review throughout the session so far. Various initiatives like Alison was talking about the new joiners email, and yourself, Samir, talking about the speakers, the open office hours. I know from a personal experience the last week that Alison and some of the DWP team as well attend the BA conference in Europe as well. But I wonder, are there any other initiatives, activities, or components of your BA community practice that are open to your practitioners and your BAs? And I wonder, Samir, I'll ask you first.
Well, yeah, I mean, and part of I think the joy in having a community is to plan these kinds of activities, and what can you do with these activities? And certainly we have those monthly meetings, the entire community to come together. I'll conduct workshops as well. So, I want to be able to pivot to deal with the issues as they come up, the challenges as they come up. So if it's called, challenges of stakeholder engagement and managing effectively stakeholder engagement, I'll, put a workshop together and then, have that during the month. So we'll do things of that nature. I will share, Team Channel, leverage that, share videos or make videos to share with people as well, in training in that manner. But I just I do my best to have continuous engagement. So not only just regular meetings or activities and events, but also workshops as well, to work with the community. And the open office hours, which are really critical because I have people join in. And so something happens that day, they join the open office hour and they say, okay, this is what's going on. Plus other people happen to join the same time, benefit from that kind of strategic analysis. How can we do this? Is there a script for dealing with a antagonistic business stakeholder? That kind of those kind of things. And so critical, but planning activities is a critical component of what I do. We have a SharePoint page. I have a discussion on there. So weekly I'll post different discussion topics, and encourage people to get involved, to talk about and discuss those topics. And those topics are usually shaped by what is going on that week, so to be timely and effective.
And I really like the idea of those discussion topics. I'm making a note of that straight away, because I think that's something that we can introduce, because I'm sure there's plenty of appetizing topics to sort of put out there for the community to share and learn from. I'm interested as well to hear, you mentioned workshops, and are they something that you focus on, I guess, particular BA techniques, approaches, or situations, or are they for some other purpose?
They can be, they're both, right? And so certainly there are particular circumstances. It could be workshops with a team of BSAs or BAs, or the entire community. Sometimes different workshops for different people. Each of teams sometimes has different issues and challenges, but sometimes it's a free-form discussion where I'll come in. And I'm not one for, I love decks, believe me, I put them together, PowerPoint, oh, it's awesome, and then people tune out, right? When you talk to what you're going through. Yeah. So I'd rather have an interactive discussion. So I have a couple of slides, but I really try to keep it, make it a discussion. And I'll go so far as to call people a round table, I'll call them into that discussion. And we'll do a real workshop, where we'll say, this is the challenge. how would each of you deal with this? And then I'll go over best practices and the like once people get a chance to share their input. So they can be focused or they can be more general, but the workshops can occur with the entire community or specific members of the community, or sometimes even one-on-one sessions where it'll be just, this person is having difficulty and quite a few challenges. How do we overcome those challenges? I think that those critical. The coping mechanisms how do you cope? Best practices are great. Here's the best practice, go run with it. But how do you cope with the environment that you're in, the surroundings that you're in, and how that impacts the quality of your work is something that I try to, make sure to broadcast, and something we try to, for a community of practice, try to broadcast to all the members. And the workshops certainly go a long way towards doing that.
There's one thing you said there. I'll double back on that in a moment. So I think it's really interesting. I'll bring it up, but I'm going to I'll seek Alison's opinion on initiatives and activities that they're doing first.
Okay. Yeah, so we do quite a lot of different initiatives. So because we're such a big community, we've obviously got people spread across about 7 different hub locations. So it's not practical to kind of just always have people together. So one of the things that we run, which seems quite popular, is something that we call coffee roulette. So it's almost, hasten to say, like speed dating. It's not quite like that, but people sign up to it and we match them randomly with another BA. And they usually tend to be virtual, but occasionally people are in the same location. But it's just a chance for people to put in some time and just have a chat with someone that maybe they've never come across, or maybe they've just never really had a good chat with. And it can be about anything. It can be something they're working on, their experience so far, perhaps like their career aspirations. So that tends to work well because people get to really build that network out of people that they wouldn't necessarily come across in their day-to-day job. So that's one of them. And then other things that we do. So I guess with having so many people, we tend to focus in on some of the key areas occasionally. So once a year, we'll bring all of our apprentices together to have a day where we kind of talk through some of the points that are pertinent to them and kind of any struggles with the apprenticeship, any learnings. So we'll bring people together for that purpose. Similarly, we'll tend to bring our senior and lead BAs together because there are things that they might be kind of wanting to share, things that they can learn from each other, ideas they've got. So we'll do that again, kind of on a sort of an annual basis, bring those people together. And then other than that, we also do quite a bit of face-to-face learning. So not sitting in a classroom, not kind of us talking at them, not the dreaded PowerPoints. Well, PowerPoint might come into it a little bit, but not it's not death by PowerPoint. But we'll try and do some interactive learning sessions. So trying to understand what are some of the areas that the community would like to develop better skills in. So the most recent couple have been around business modeling, so different types of business modeling to try and get people almost out their comfort zone of, oh, I always do a process map, I always do this. It's actually, what about these other options, having some more things within your toolkit. So we go out and do sessions where people can do hands-on, working in groups, having a go at something, trying something they haven't already done. So quite a few different things there in terms of bringing people together for different purposes and different reasons. And I know also within our wider community, certain areas will run sort of mini hub, sort of lower kind of, say lower, more specific communities, perhaps around a particular piece of work or a particular location. So equally, they're valuable as well for people to sometimes come together and talk about something specific that they're all working on together. So yeah, quite a lot of different things than that, I guess.
Well, it's always good to have a variety of things available for individuals. So I guess it goes back to the point made earlier that some will resonate with some individuals better than others. So you've got those broad range of activities and sessions that people can be involved in, probably increases the likelihood of someone getting involved at least in one of those items. Absolutely, yeah, it does. I mean, on top of what you've said, I mean, there's probably some things that I would share as well that we find quite interesting. So, I had a brief mention of the BA conference, but there's the European BA conference that some of us get the opportunity to go to. We're involved in BA Life and the IIBA as well, so that gives opportunity for people to maybe share some of their experiences, share what they've done, present, or even just be part of those broader sessions where there's people outside of CAPCO in this case, so we get to meet other BAs that are doing similar things. We do training as well, so we have in-house BA training in the main, mostly but not entirely hosted by me, but it's a good way to meet the community and for people that are BAs wherever they may be in the world to connect. So that looks like that's quite useful. I don't want to say it is quite useful. I think it is. I'm pretty confident, but and I have some good feedback. But I guess it's more for them the audience to say. But I certainly see a lot of people returning to the subsequent modules and demonstrating what they've learned in prior modules. So they're probably picking something up, I think. And then and recently at the BA conference, there was Paul Hayward was talking about innovation, something that I'm definitely going to take away. And it's probably similar to the workshops and the focus sessions that you both mentioned, but how we can think about innovation from a BA sense, so take the good stuff that Paul was talking about, but really focus it perhaps on how we can evolve our own BA practices for certain situations. So look out for that as we'll introduce that, I think, and see how that goes, because that might be a good way to bring some people together, workshop and brainstorm and think about how we can evolve some of our techniques, be it process or otherwise. And then the last thing I'll bring up, and this goes back to the point you made, Samir, in terms of one-to-ones, because I think that's been really important for us as well as a community, because it's excellent, of course, to have group activities, but there's always those situations where somebody needs a bit of support, they're new, or they just want to ask some questions. There's a variety of reasons why someone might need a one-to-one, and I think myself and everyone who's involved is a part of the core team. One of our commitments to being part of the core team is that should anyone else in the BA community reach out to you and want to ask questions or to take some of our time, then that's something that we'll do as well. So that's hopefully rewarding for the people that reach out to us and get some of our time, but it can quite often be rewarding as well for us, because we pick up tips and ideas that we can also apply to others. So that's generally quite useful.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's extremely useful to get that, those ideas and thoughts. And people might be more and are actually more inclined to share openly and frankly during the one-to-one sessions than sometimes in the group sessions and community sessions, right, where people might not want to speak out or, frankly talk about what they're facing within the organization, whether it be business analysis practices or lack thereof, or the culture of the organization and the environment. So the one-to-ones are, I think, critical and essential.
Yeah. We've talked about as well, we've talked about engagement, ensuring that the community are connected, we're connected to the community. But are there tips or any ways that you found particularly effective in engaging, motivating the members of the community over time? And that's such an easy question. I'll put it to Alison first, if I may.
I think one thing that we have found that works quite well, so apart from trying to keep the variety, definitely keep the variety up. So, we don't want to do the same old things all the time. Otherwise, people will just be like, oh, kind of heard this before, I've seen this before, I've done this before. So making sure we do lots of things. Maybe not everyone would agree in our community, but we try to bring quite an element of fun to our sessions. So if we're doing kind of a face-to-face learning, we will bring in sometimes quite bizarre activities, but to get people really thinking, so bringing in different characters or different props, etc. So it's just trying to really get people interested, as opposed to feeling like they're coming along to something and kind of hearing things that they've heard before, or learning things in a kind of a classroom style, which there are other places they can get that from. So yeah, just kind of making sure that whatever we put on in terms of community events or bringing people together, that people can see some value from it as well. There's got to be some kind of purpose or value just there because we've all got the job title of a BA. There's got to be more to it than that. So people need to sort of feel that they're going to get something from a session, whether it's discussion, whether it's learning something new, whether it's bringing them out of their comfort zone, whatever it might be. It's just that real kind of making them think about, the value of why should I spend my time? I've got so much time on a project that I'm being asked to come in and do, and I need to take some time out to come and do something BA related. I've got to get some value from that. So I think that's vital for our BAs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely like the point around it should be an element of fun as well. If you did dedicate any time to this, and there's all elements of the analysis that can be enjoyable. So it's definitely, I think, definitely good that we focus on that as well. Samir.
I think Alison said it well, because let's face it, if we're just talking about best practices in the 6 knowledge areas, or and going through that, and people will come in and, oh, here we go again, tuning out. We've got to make it, valuable, of course, to the community and timely, right? I think it's critical that we talk about the subjects and have frank discussions, that we talk about the subjects and the challenges that are coming up currently right now. I also want to broadcast to everyone that you are the experts here. Be confident in what you're doing, to broadcast confidence. You're the professional, business analysis professional coming onto a project. Let's talk about the challenges, but have the fun, do it in a fun way, but be confident in your abilities as a business analysis professional that you come to there. And if somebody is questioning that or doubting that, well, talk to them, broadcast what the value is, right? But that can only be when you have these workshops, or you have this and you are expressing that this is valuable, that you are tuned in to what the community is facing at that time. So being timely is very important, as well as keeping it light and not so dry, and not like, monotonous voice. Here we go, and how you engage. And of course, yeah, okay. But, we try to instill that value, do it in a way that is interesting, intriguing, and exciting, that also fosters communication and innovation. I always say, don't be beholden to best practices. They're there for a reason, to provide a strong foundation. However,
Yeah.
you as a person on the project are the expert on what that project needs, and you need to adapt, right? We say, I don't want to use, pun intended, agile, right? There we go. I said it, agile, because we say that all the time, day after day. And, and you have to adapt to that. And we'll try to instill that with the workshops that I do, with the different, events, is that we try to instill those kind of the confidence, the adaptability, and do it in a way that is timely. And yes, as Alison says, is in a fun way that is interesting and intriguing for the community, that they come into it saying, you know what, I hadn't thought of that before. If they say something like that, my job is well done. I hadn't thought of that before. And, that would work really well, and get them talking amongst themselves as well about it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, a good thing with what we're describing as well, what you described there, is that if any BA is turning up at the community events and sharing what they've been doing, there is nothing incorrect about that. There's no aspect that it can be seen as wrong, because they're sharing their experience, how they've approached things, perhaps the challenges or how they've overcome them. And whoever it's valuable to, well, that's not necessarily for them to determine it, but it is a very appropriate thing to share, to at least resonate with some people in the room, make them recognize that some of the challenges that we all experience are not limited to ourselves as well. It might also be a good opportunity afterwards to have further discussions, to really get into the detail of how that person overcome a situation that might be very similar to our own. And the point you made, Samir, about timeliness as well, means that we can probably have some conversations and have some speakers from within the team that are talking about very relevant challenges that we're experiencing right now as well. So I really like those points. I think on top of it, I think what I would add as well, I think some other ways that can also get the community engaged and motivated is really, thinking about the individual. What's in it for them? What can they walk away with, when and if they walk away from the organisation, or they walk away from business analysis at some point in the future, what are they going to walk away with? And one of those very tangible things could be qualifications. So we support some qualifications through organisations like the IIBA as well, and their community of practice is there to guide people on what training is available if they want to go down the formal route. And I think further than that, irrespective of whether it's training or not, I think just recognition can quite often be rewarding in its own way, and it can really back up those good practices that people are doing. So I think if people are, going back to the example earlier, if people are willing to share what they've done, we can recognise the good work and the positive value it's brought, and hopefully then that will sort of act as a sort of catalyst then for others to recognise the good value of business analysts.
Yeah,
Again,
that's a
make me
great
think
point.
we should probably bring in some maybe some development leads or some program leads at some point in the future to, on successful projects, to come along and share, the successes that as they've seen it through their eyes. Might be quite interesting.
And it's interesting, John, that you mentioned that because, we often focus on, like during the last monthly meeting I had with the community, we often focus on what are the challenges? What are you facing and stuff? But I decided to twist it or, switch it around and say, what are your successes over the last month? And it was interesting, right? Because most of the time we focus on what are the challenges, but the community has successes. And I point to what you're saying about recognition. I told them, recognize that you've had successes. And what are those successes? And at first, you could see people a little bit hesitant and thinking, and like people are quick to say, "Oh, this is a challenge. This is terrible. This is really difficult." But once they started talking about their successes, we pulled it together. We did a word cloud and for the entire community, pulled it all together, and I broadcast that through the various channels. And afterwards, to post the meeting, and people realize that there are successes. There are things that we are doing that are successful, and we become the community can without the center of practice or community of practice or center of excellence. People might not recognize that there are successes. They become myopic. They become siloed. And they don't realize that, yes, you know what? Indeed, I'm sharing successes with other people as well because their success is the same thing I was successful at. And that's important. I think that John pointed to what you were saying. I think that's really critical. So I try to do that as well, is to flip it around. What is it that we're doing right? What is it that the community practice, or entire community is doing correctly and having success with? Because we need to strengthen that and build upon that as well.
Yeah, those successes that you talk about, it makes me think that actually it takes us back to an earlier question in terms of what's in it for the organisation. And actually, if we're sort of maintaining a view of those successes over time, and we've got almost like a knowledge bank of really good experiences, projects, business analysis outcomes, that it probably makes that activity of informing the organisation of the benefits a whole lot easier
Yeah.
because we've got some tangible examples rather than talking about things theoretically.
Right. You broadcast it up the ladder, so to speak, and are able to provide solid data and information back to, say, senior leadership who are, want to understand what the successes are as well as the challenges. But you have to kind of shift that mindset into that. What are we doing right? Because there are things the community is doing right. And I think that's where the community of practice steps in to help them understand that.
Is there any, Samir, is there any advice that you would give to somebody perhaps starting a BA community, a practice of their own, or perhaps from scratch that you think would be useful or a key ingredient perhaps?
Perseverance. That's critical. When you're starting from scratch, and depending on the environment you're in and the disparate pockets of analysts and the like, it's going to be important for the individual creating this or setting up the foundation for this community of practice to bring those disparate elements together. I think John or Alison, you had mentioned before about templates and the like and artifacts. So many different versions of templates, so many different artifacts, so many different kinds of variations on best practices. How do you bring it all together and kind of align everybody and every practice and the artifacts themselves? That's the challenge there, right? To bring that together. And that takes a bit of time to do. It's not something that overnight you're set and you're ready to go, but it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say perseverance is critical, patience, of course, and the ability to deal with not only the business analysis community, but as I mentioned before, to also deal with members outside of the community, because you have to understand that not only the community understands the value of what you're doing, but the people outside the community should understand the value of this community of practice center of excellence. It's critical. So perseverance, understanding the environment, and bringing disparate elements together is going to be critical to the foundational element of the center of excellence or community practice. And broadcasting it regularly. I always say it's like almost like marketing, your PR. It's like marketing. You're marketing the community of practice. You're marketing the value of it to people within and without, right? And you have to consistently and constantly market that value and you raise that the brand awareness of that community of practice.
Yeah.
So it's more than one word. I'm sorry. More than one word.
I don't believe I put a limitation on one word. I'm glad I did, because there's a number of really valid and appropriate points there, and they're all resonating, and particularly like the perseverance and the patience. makes me think, at the outset when you're trying to form that centre of community of practice, there's probably a lot of things to do, not something to try and take on your own, and maybe to try and form at the early stage like a close-knit group, coalition of really trusted individuals. They don't necessarily have to be experts just yet, but people that are, passionate about what they're trying to do and they're keen to help others, because I think that will help as well. Yeah, no limitation on one word, as we hand over to Alison for similar advice and nuggets.
I guess it's almost just don't create a community just for the sake of it. Actually think about what is it that you actually want to get out of it, and actually then engage with, whether it's a smaller with of other kind of people you're working alongside, or whether you want to kind of go full pelt and ask everyone for input. But if you want to get buy-in from people, they want to feel that it's something that they've got a bit of a say in. It's almost like get their ideas about how this could work, get some thoughts down, get them together in groups. Just almost think about, this is what I'd love to get out of a community. I think if you're starting from scratch, that's the ideal time to do that. You're going to build up that kind of relationship with people, their buy-in from the outset. And then I guess coming back to that point from earlier is that realization. So if you start a community of practice, you're going to want everybody involved, aren't you? You want everyone to come along and everyone to get loads out of it. But you do need to have that mindset of, okay, not everybody will be involved in everything, and don't take that personally. So you're setting it up. It's not just a community set up by a person. It's not their community, it's everyone's community. And if people want to engage in it sometimes and not other times, that's absolutely fine. So just go in with that kind of open mind. I think set your expectations.
Yeah, no, that's a good bit. And I think on top of that, I mean, I think if it's a community you're trying to build, once you've established it's relevant to set one up. And I definitely agree with what you said there, Alison, about justification and is it the right thing to do. But I think if you're going to build that community, trying to think about some of the infrastructure early as well, and I know we've been talking about teams as an example, but recognizing that community are really going to be effective if they can communicate effectively and if they can share effectively. So we've got to think about early on how we can do that, and if it's teams or it's some other form, then great, but there needs to be a mechanism to do it. And then obviously that infrastructure, if you like, can extend further as we think more about the community of practice. So I think Samir mentioned about branding and marketing and how we let others share awareness. I think we need to make sure there's the right channels to be able to communicate the good work outside the BA community, so that others can leverage, rather than potentially go and form their own BA community on the side, which wouldn't be ideal, of course. I think beyond that as well, I think from my own experience, I think what's been really effective is looking outside of our own organisation and seeing what other communities of practice are doing. I mean, being part of BA conferences is an excellent way to see other organisations that you might not be familiar with otherwise and hear the good stuff that they do. So there's always something to take away from there. I think I've been in an excellent position for doing this, that I get to speak to similar people such as yourselves and learn a little bit every time, more than a little bit in actual fact. And so that's always useful. But even things like LinkedIn and just contributing to articles or sharing comments or what you want people have got to say. There are so many ways to learn from outside your organisation, and cherry pick the best bits, the bits that really work for you, and bring it in. And of course, maybe the other lesson is that if something's not working, get rid of it straight away. Don't hang on to it. Don't be too precious about it.
Yeah, there's no harm in stealing ideas, is there? I always think.
No, I think I don't know if BA is the only profession, but I think it's perfectly fine if you see someone doing something better than you, make it your way of doing it. That's what I always say.
Absolutely.
I wonder, we've not got too long left, so I'm going to ask one final and quite open question in terms of whether there is any further advice or insight that you might want to share in relation to communities of practice and setting them up. And Alison, I'll ask you first. Although recognising you've both shared a load already, so if there is anything else you want to share, one more opportunity.
I guess don't expect a fully grown community from day one. It takes time, it takes effort, which I think we've mentioned. It takes people who want to be part of it as well. So trying to keep, you want some keen people who can see a purpose to it, but you want to kind of maintain that enthusiasm throughout. So I think, yeah, just going with that idea of starting smaller, growing it, coming up with new ideas, trying things. Not everything's going to work. You sometimes you do things or put on particular things that you think people are going to be interested in, and it can fall flat. That's okay. That's kind of part of it. I always think we like to say our community is kind of that safe space where people can ask questions and try things. And I think that goes for some of us who are trying to run some of these things occasionally, run events, try different learning styles out. It doesn't always work, but we can learn from that, and hopefully other people actually get something from seeing that we don't always get it right as well. So yeah, but perseverance is definitely the big one.
Excellent advice. Samir?
Perseverance, right? I think that's critical in getting everybody in alignment. As Alison and John, you have said, it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that is a continuously evolving community, right? And that's critical to treat it as such. But giving people not only the tools, the forum to communicate frankly, and an open forum to communicate, honestly, is critical. To align everyone, for instance. I put together what I call a BA manifesto. So that has like that agile manifesto, but BA style. So, these are the commonality, what we're trying to achieve. And I try to tell people about it, read that out through and see if that resonates, those points resonate. Because a community has to be joined together, have a commonality between them and a thread between them, so that they can go out with confidence as business analysis professionals to really be the experts in the field and bring that expertise to the projects. It's a benefit to everyone. So perseverance, understanding that the community will evolve and change, making it fun, as we talked about before, making it intriguing, interactive. Having a personal touch is critical as well, the one-to-one to teach those coping mechanisms in an oftentimes stressful world of business analysis is critical. So it's best practices, it's coping mechanisms, it's confidence, legitimacy to the profession as well, which I kind of mentioned before, giving it weight and legitimacy, which sometimes, honestly, some business analysis professionals don't have that sense, and that impacts the confidence they may have working on a project. And I think that's what a community is important. What we have to constantly work on this kind of what could be a nebulous blob, right? But you got to kind of shape it into something and continue to do so, because it's very easy for it to fall apart. I just want to mention and I'm sure you both will agree that it's a day, every day you have to work at it to keep it all together, because it's very easy for it to fall apart. John, you mentioned then you got a smaller community practice or developing for a certain team, and then they may be saying something completely different. So again, alignment falls apart and so on. So we try to make sure that we pull all of it together, and I try to do my best to keep an eye on those points.
I think it's on those lines. I mean, my bit of advice actually isn't necessarily to an individual setting up a community of practice, but it's actually more to the community that are benefiting from it. And I think, someone that has established a community of practice and try and build that out, it'd be so helpful with the practitioners if they've got ideas, they've got things that are not working for them, something they want to change, they want to be involved, any ideas at all, that they feel free to come and share it, and come and take responsibility to host some sessions, to lead or organise some sessions, or to share what they've got. Because the more they do that, that will encourage others to do the same. Before you know it, you won't have to have a central figure in the community at all. It'll be a true community where everyone's equal and providing backwards and forwards and help for each other. So a bit of an appeal to anyone in the community, in our communities. If we're not doing anything for you and you need it, then come and tell us what it is, and come and get involved and help us implement it, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. Every voice is a essential central voice. Every voice of the community.
Yeah, all equally important. On the topic of voices, I think we've probably used ours enough. So I think I'm going to leave it there. But first things to say, really thank you very much for your time. It's been excellent to speak to you again and to hear your perspective and experience on setting up BA communities of practice. I know you've proven what I said before. You're the right people to be talking about on this topic. So thank you for that. Definitely look forward to seeing and hearing from you both in the future. And hopefully those watching enjoyed the session as much as I did. So thank you, everybody.